Hi, this is Paul Hoyt, your host with Ascending Harvest, with my best buddy, business partner, the founder and CTO of Ascending Harvest, Shane McKenna. Say hello, Shane.
Hey, everybody. Excited to have a really great day on a really great conversation today on our broadcast. So stay tuned because we're going to talk about some fun stuff.
We are going to talk about some fun stuff. For those of you who are just joining us and who may not have watched one of these live streams before or watched one of our blogs before, Ascending Harvest is a company that is dedicated, committed, passionate about helping millions of families in developing countries and refugee camps grow their own food, to bypass all of the problems with the current infrastructure issues and distribution of food issues by empowering people to supplant their nutrition or supply a great deal of their daily nutritional needs through the power of growing their own plants using Shane's technology, intelligent grow media, and human-powered hydroponics. We invite you to listen to some of the blogs that we have done before, some of these daily Zoomcasts where we talk about the technology that we are employing and learn more about who we are and what we are doing. In about the middle of September, coming up here in just a few short weeks, we'll be launching a crowdfunding campaign to raise the funds that we need to do the next level of prototypes, prepare our systems for manufacturing, pursue large grant opportunities in Washington, D.C., and basically take our company to the next level. So anything and everything that you can do, contribute $1, $20, however much you feel comfortable doing, but more importantly than that, even sharing it with your social media networks, sharing it with your email list, because we know that some large percentage of the people who become aware of this project are going to fall in love with it just like we have, because we really do have the opportunity to make a difference in the lives of millions and millions of people. And I am pumped up and excited about that, as I know Shane is too. So
absolutely. And I can't help but backstop you, and it cannot be overstated that you sharing our project is one of the most significant ways that you can help us to empower others to feed themselves.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. And you know what else I'm excited about, Shane?
Are you excited about the magic of plants?
I am excited about the magic of plants. So I guess I've been running around with, my head covered in some way with blinders on for the last 60 years, thinking that really not understanding how plants work. I understand how people work. We consume water, we consume, food in the course of our meals, etc. And that's the way we grow. We get nutrition from the outside world and grow. But I really never understood, I think, how plants got their nutrition. I always thought they just sucked up what they needed from the soil, and that's what they did. But Shane, my buddy, told me a few months ago that, plants don't do that. They consume, well, I'll let him tell you, but they consume resources in many other quite miraculous ways, which seem like pure magic to me. So Shane, talk to me about the magic of plants. How do we take these little tiny seeds and put them in some sort of a nice environment, give them a little sunlight, and, before we know it, we've got a tree? How does that all work?
Well, it's pretty complicated, and we're not going to cover it in a few minutes, but some of the important things that aren't necessarily obvious to people is that there's aspects and things that plants need that are hidden. Mm-hmm. For example, healthy soil contains 25% air. If you don't have air in the soil, there's only a small range of plants that can be supported in that soil, and they need air too. But if you notice, if you have very compacted soil, what plants will grow in that? There's a few weeds that will grow in very compacted soil. And the reason is those, and we call them weeds, but they're really opportunists. Those are plants that are looking for that opportunity to have that ground all to themselves, and they've specialized in being able to grow in highly compacted soil. So they leverage that niche in the environment. But most plants can't leverage that. Most plants need what they call very alluvial soil, or soil that's got that's been loosened up by roots, by microbiology activities such as worms and nematodes in the soil. Loosen that soil up so that air can get down to the roots.
So plants need not only the air, the oxygen, like what you and I breathe, but the roots need to breathe as well?
They do.
Wow.
So at the root level, which is really important because that's what our system is specialized in supporting differently than other farming systems, is we support the roots differently than other farming systems. And at the root level, you need that air exchange so that the plants can both get oxygen to the roots, but they also, air is 80% nitrogen, and they need to get that nitrogen to the roots too. But they don't get the nitrogen from the air as it's delivered in air. There's bacteria in the soil that loves carbon. And the bacteria in the soil that's eating that carbon also consumes this nitrogen and converts it into a form that the plant can uptake. And one of the things that's polluting our planet is that in traditional farming, we take an isolated form of plant available nitrogen and we spray it on our fields.
Yeah.
And we put a lot of nitrogen on the soil because the plants love the nitrogen, but it causes problems with the soil biology and creates an unhealthy, unbalanced soil that has to continue to have inputs over and over and over in order to achieve that growth. And it's achieved artificially. Instead of creating a healthy topsoil, it's created with continuous implementation of chemical fertilizers to bring that nitrogen and potassium and those things up to a level for the plants. And our system avoids that. But the air in the soil is extremely important so that we get that nitrogen available to the plants.
So I think I heard you say that once you really start using fertilizer, and there's a lot of fertilizer on a field somewhere or in a garden, that it really disrupts the normal biological function of the soil such that you have to continue using it over and over again. Because, the soil will no longer create sufficient nitrogen on its own once we've kind of taught it that it doesn't need to do that anymore.
Yeah, the soil gets out of balance, and the reason that farmland soil isn't creating the nitrogen is because we take everything off the land. We don't allow the plant matter that's there to recombine itself with the soil. So the soil doesn't have the biomass in it. If you look at healthy soil, if you want to look at the healthiest soil, look where plants are growing prolifically. So look in a forest, look in a meadow. And if you dig down into that soil, it'll be rich, dark, and loamy, really deep into the soil. And that's because the organic material that's growing there continues to die off, break down, recycle into new plants, and that process just happens over and over and over. And as long as the soil has that natural process going, it will continue to support itself. As soon as we come in and we harvest everything off of there, for example, we grow wheat, and we don't just take the kernels and leave the rest there. No, we bale that all up as straw, and we use that straw as another commodity product.
Yeah.
And so what is left there for the land to turn into new soil? Just a little bit of stubble and the roots left in the ground, and that's not enough to sustain that healthy soil. So we have to have these inputs, and then once we have these inputs, then we're artificially creating this, we're artificially creating the nutrients that that the plants need, and I can't speak to, because I'm not an expert, I can't speak to the fact that it diminishes the soil ability to make its own nutrients, but I know if you want to get out of that cycle, you need to let that land rest and need to let it do what land naturally does to get back to its natural soil health and to be able to grow without those nutrient inputs.
Awesome. Awesome. That's very interesting. And that's why, you know, in older days, I don't think they do it very much these days, but wasn't it like kind of the gospel that you had to let the land go fallow once every 7 years or so?
Yeah, and you know, you can do crop rotation. So the reason for that is you need to, if you're growing monocrops, you need to let that land rest from that monocrop. It needs to have biodiversity in the land to get back to its production level. So in the permaculture movement, which I'm a huge proponent of, we actually don't monocrop. We create guilds so that we have crops that support each other, so that each one is providing something to the health of the soil and to building the soil instead of diminishing the soil.
Got it. I want to come back to something that you said earlier about plant roots needing oxygen in the soil. And how about when you have a hydroponic system? You know, do they also get oxygen from the water itself?
Yes, you have to oxygenate the water.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, if you highly oxygenate the water, then that becomes available to the plants. And there's a wide range of mechanisms to do that within the industry.
Uh-huh.
And on the different hydroponic systems that I've designed and built and tested and worked with companies, is the most successful hydroponic systems are those that can get the most air into the water. And that's one of the reasons why aeroponics is such an advanced and high-performing level of hydroponics, is because the roots are literally in the air and they have a very carefully balanced mist, almost it would be better to call it a fog of moisture around the roots. And those plants grow extremely well, especially in the foliage stage. They grow extremely well, very fast, because those plants have everything that they need available to them all the time. Unfortunately, aeroponics is extremely complicated mechanically, and complicated to understand and complicated to maintain. So it's not a viable solution for the average person or somebody that doesn't have a lot of resources to implement and maintain that kind of a system.
Yeah, I think you'd have to have very big systems to be able to be effective with aeroponics because of the infrastructure necessary, you know, to have the misters and to have the pumps and to have all of that, all the electronics necessary to do that right. So
right. There's a lot of
no small scale aeroponic systems generally.
Right. That's generally true. There's the highest end aeroponic systems. They actually warm the water. They create a fog with the water and nutrient, and it's very hard to maintain those systems. And you have to be very careful with the nutrient, because even small crystals or small amounts of debris can clog those nozzles and frustrate your ability to get that fog to the roots of the plants. And so you've got fans and monitoring systems and heaters and pumps, and actually getting that in the right balance in the root zone is quite an arduous engineering task in itself, let alone maintaining that proper balance.
Cool. Well, we've talked about how plants take oxygen and water and nutrients from the soil, but the real magic of plants to me is their ability to take carbon out of the atmosphere and turn that into leaves and fruit and edible stuff.
Right.
Talk to me about that. How does that work?
So that's a huge deal. You'll see in recent times that we've been talking a lot about sequestering carbon because we have a very high amount of CO2 in the atmosphere, and people are concerned about how that's affecting the warming of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And so people are looking at how do we sequester this carbon dioxide? In other words, how do we get it trapped again? Because through all the use of fossil fuels, we're releasing it. So how do we trap it again? So one of the most effective ways to sequester carbon is to turn it into plants. And that's really easy because plants do that all by themselves. They take the carbon dioxide in the air and through photosynthesis, they turn it into sugar and carbohydrates that actually become the fibrous elements of the plant. So the plant literally becomes a byproduct of carbon dioxide. They're pulling that carbon dioxide out of the air and locking it in the plant. And so the more we can grow a plant, the more effectively we can grow plants, the more carbon we can lock into each individual plant. And if we're wise in how we use that, we can recycle that carbon for more plants, or we can utilize that carbon as byproducts that don't get recycled into the environment for a long time. And so when you talk about great carbon sequestration, you naturally turn towards trees, because trees form this huge mass of lumber, and then if a tree falls down in the woods and nobody's there to hear it, I don't know if it makes a sound, but I know that if it rots, that carbon goes back into the soil and it goes back into the atmosphere. So the best way for long-term sequestration of carbon is if it's wood, and then we build something out of that wood that lasts a really long time. So if you look at houses that were built in Rome and in England and in China and these places where the civilization has built structures for tens of thousands of years, those buildings that are 1,000 years old that have wood in them, that is carbon that was sequestered 1,000 years ago.
Huh. Wow. So, we're seeing a lot of deforestation around the world. The Amazon rainforest is losing, some large number of square miles every single day as people cut down trees. And we're also seeing a tremendous amount of pollution, in places like Beijing, for example, where they're forecasting catastrophic cancer rates because of the really poor condition of the atmosphere. What can we do as a civilization, to rebalance our atmosphere and clean up places like cities like Beijing?
Well, primarily I would say alternative energy sources, so that we're not burning carbon as our primary source of energy. That's number one. Sustainable energy sources, so that there is technology that if we take plant matter and we burn that, and then we can capture that carbon. And I have some friends that have invented a technology that they can capture that carbon right off of the exhaust, and we sequester it into the water nutrient mix for large commercial farms, and we can put that carbon right back into the plants.
Wow.
So there are some things we can do, but growing plants, plant a tree, grow a garden. When you grow plants, you're sequestering carbon in that plant. And as that plant decomposes, it re-releases it. But if you are using that to then again recycle and grow more food and grow more food. And especially if you end up using that compost around your trees, you're turning that carbon into that tree, and that tree is going to hold that carbon for a really long time. So the more trees we have, the cleaner our air is going to be, the less carbon dioxide, or it's going to have a mitigating influence on the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. We may not, just by planting trees, be able to reverse the increase in carbon, but at least we're mitigating it at some level until we start using enough alternative energy to start reversing the trend.
Awesome. So these magic plants, we take these little tiny seeds, or in some cases larger seeds, we put them in, fertile soil, in nutrient-rich soil, give them appropriate water, give them appropriate sunshine. They consume the water from the soil and it comes down through the rain. They consume the nutrients out of the soil. They consume carbon out of the atmosphere, and they turn that in magically, mysteriously to me, but magically turn all of those resources into food that we can eat.
Yeah. That's the most beautiful symbiotic relationship, the most fundamental symbiotic relationship that we have in nature is we as animals, as mammals, as people, we exhale carbon dioxide. Plants use that to build themselves, and they give us food that sustains us. And so it's this beautiful cycle. And I would like to speak to how our technology actually enhances that exchange.
Awesome. I'm very excited to hear that. Go for it.
So one of the things that our system does is it ensures that that oxygen level at the plant root zone is more than adequate. So its only rival in the hydroponic world is aeroponics, which we've talked about are excellent systems, but very complicated. Ours is a very simple approach to achieve the same thing of supplying a lot of air zone to the root zone of the plant. And like aeroponics that is supplying air to the roots in a mechanical way, we also supply air to the roots in the form of a hand air pump. When the user is pumping the air, they're pumping air into our water and nutrient mixture, and it's being utilized in the system to recirculate the water, but it's also being pumped right directly into the root zone of that plant. So we're getting a greater air exchange at the roots because we're mechanically pumping air to the roots of the plant.
Wow. So that should help the plants grow a little bit quicker, and maybe, I know I'm eager to test out whether or not our plants actually taste better than most plants, which I think that they will, primarily because we're not going to use seeds that are engineered to survive a long distribution cycle.
Right.
We can use seeds that are engineered to grow nutrient-dense, great-tasting food, that doesn't have to survive being shipped halfway across the country.
Well, we already have some anecdotal biased testing because my friends and family have enjoyed the fruits of my labor of produce that's grown in these systems, and their biased opinion is that it tastes sweeter, it tastes fresher, and they enjoy it very much.
That's awesome. I love the fact that you recognize that it's a little bit biased, but let's do what we can to help hundreds of thousands or millions of families do that taste test for themselves. My guess is that, in just a year or so, maybe less, maybe only 6 or 9 months from now, there'll be some child in a refugee camp or a developing country, plucking that first tomato or, taking that first cucumber. And my belief is that that's going to taste like candy to them, that it's going to be incredibly nutritious, and it's going to be such a wonderful experience for them to taste that for themselves. That's really what I'm looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, it's it's a dream that's coming into reality. And you know, if you've grown a garden, you know how much of a relishing moment that is when you pick that tomato off the vine. And I like to just eat them just like that, you know, wash them off, and just, I don't need salt, I don't need anything else. I just pop that sucker in my mouth, and it is so good. And my kids absolutely love the fact that several times I've used one of these systems in our kitchen window, and a modified version of the system. And we've grown our kitchen herbs, our cooking herbs right there, and we will take the rosemary and the basil and the marjoram and oregano, and I love to cook Italian foods and really savory foods, and we'll put that right from our farm right there in the kitchen window, and we'll put it in the pot, and my kids love to clip it and cook with it, and they get involved in the process. But imagine how amplified that will be to a child that's never had that fresh tomato opportunity, that's never had that nutrition. Imagine how much their body is craving that. And when they taste that, not only is their body saying, oh, yes, finally, but they get all that flavor and they get that joy that their family grew that themselves.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'd like to have every child on the face of the planet have the opportunity to do exactly that, to take what Mother Nature offers by putting our systems into place so that they can enjoy the flavor and the nutritional aspects of that fresh fruit and fresh vegetables. That sounds really, really cool. I'm excited about that. I think that's a project, that's a project worth supporting. So those of you who are listening to this, if you haven't done so already, go to ascendingharvest.com, sign up for our list so that you can keep up to date on the progress that we're having with this company. Go to the Ascending Harvest Facebook page, like us there, so you can follow us there with our daily posts. You can go to our website as well and listen to some of the previous Zoomcasts that we have done. We did a couple last week on Intelligent Grow Media. They thought were really, really great. These Zoomcasts are a combination of talking about our systems and the magic of plants and the whole hydroponic universe, and we offer business tips as well, and we offer some inspirational works as well. So there's a variety of great information, inspirational messages, insightful material in our blog posts on our website and on the Facebook page. So we certainly invite you to take advantage of those and listen to them. And I was really excited to learn about the magic of plants. Like I said at the beginning, I understand animals and consuming food, but it really never dawned on me how plants consume their resources from the atmosphere through their roots, through their leaves, taking the energy of the sun and using photosynthesis and magically, wonderfully transforming that into food for us that's absolutely delicious and nutritious and exactly what our bodies need. That is awesome.
It really is. It really is mysterious enough to appear like magic.
I'm just going to go ahead and call it magic. The magic of plants. It can be science to you, and it can be science to other botanists and plant biologists and those sort of folks. I think I'm just going to let that remain magic to me.
It is magic.
Speaking of magic, we're going to give away. That was not a great segue. But speaking of magic, we're going to magically come up with random numbers and give away one of our human-powered hydroponics systems to those who have gone to our website and signed up for our list. So please do that so we can reach out to you and give you progress updates, but also so that you can be eligible for these prize drawings and some other prize drawings as well. Since we started our Zoomcasts every day, we've picked a random number between 0 or 1 and 10,000 and use that to let us determine who the winner of today's human-powered hydroponic system is going to be. So I exported all of the names from the people who did the list. We gave them all a random number. We sorted them into order, and Shane's going to give us a random number, and we're going to pick the winner right now. What's your magic number, Shane?
So I'm using the magic of random.org. And so they've got software on here that when I push this button, it's going to generate a number 2107. 2107.
2107. And the closest one to that, and only 17 numbers away, which is pretty close for us, is Mike Jones. So Mike Jones, congratulations. You are the winner of your very own human-powered hydroponic system. We will ship that to you probably in Q1 2019, in about 6 months or so, maybe 7 months. Or at that time, you are welcome to let that be a donation to a family in need in your name. Congratulations again, Mike Jones. And we want to give a human-powered hydroponic system to each and every one of you. The only way we can do that is if you sign up at ascendingharvest.com and we get your email address so that we can enter you into these prize drawings every day. Be thinking about our crowdfunding campaign. It's going to launch here about the middle of September or so. We're getting very, very close to picking the date and the venue. We plan to do a launch party for those of you who are in the Salt Lake City area. We're going to do a launch party, a gathering of people who are supporting this project, and there'll be a lot more information come up on that. And that's why we're kind of delaying it until September 19th so we can have a great party to kick off what we think is going to be a massively successful crowdfunding campaign, but it's only going to be successful with your support. You know, your $1, your $5, your $10, whatever you choose to contribute. But as Shane said earlier, most importantly, your eagerness, your willingness to share the message of this crowdfunding campaign and of our passion with Ascending Harvest with your network of people. We really do want you to do that, and thanks in advance for supporting us and supporting this project. Tomorrow we're going to talk about another interesting aspect of hydroponic technology and or the magic of plants or something. We're going to figure it out here over the next 24 hours, but it's going to be wonderful and you're going to enjoy it because we always do. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye, and I'm going to let Shane say goodbye and close us out.
Well, thank you, Paul. As always, you're full of enthusiasm and energy and lots of great information. And by the way, although our launch party is going to be in Salt Lake City, I have no complaint to somebody that wants to fly in and join us.
Ooh, well, I'm going to do that. So you got at least one person jumping on an airplane who is eager to participate in that party. Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
And
so more. Go ahead.
And not only are we just having a party, where it's actually a fundraising party that we hope to raise a significant amount of funding that helps kick off our crowdfunding in a way that sends the message that this is a real opportunity to help people in need. Awesome.
Thank you for that. Thank you for tuning in and watching us. Come join us again tomorrow when we'll talk about some more stuff about human-powered hydroponics and Ascending Harvest. Until then, this is Paul Hoyt and Shane McKenna saying bye-bye.
Bye-bye.